to Guns and Yellow Ribbons Live. It's Fergus, and I'm here with episode 95. I'm joined by four other fellow Gooners. I'm joined by Melina. Melina's back in from a couple of weeks off. I saw Melina on Sunday at the 12 Pins, and we had a couple of drinks, and we chatted about the game, and we're going to carry on chatting about it again today. You okay, Melina?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you very much for inviting me again. Obviously, like probably everyone else, I'm a little bit fed up with the last game and English weather. But yeah, apart from that, everything is fine. Thank you.
English weather, I can understand that. The football, I don't really understand what you're talking about. We'll get into that one in a minute. Scunny, the weather obviously hasn't improved from last week because you still got something on your bonnet.
Every time.
Every time. Well, you wear these silly hats. How are you keeping? You okay?
It's not silly hats. It's cold. That's why I'm wearing it. I'm cold. It keeps your head warm.
It is.
And not only that, now I'm on live. You never know. I might get a sponsor.
You actually, you get Paddy Power or something like that on there. Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, you never know. That'd be all right.
Well, make sure you give me a cup as well. Yeah, all right.
Free bets.
I'll tell you what. He's just disappeared. I was about to go to Cos and see if it was cold out there, but obviously it's windy and he's lost his internet connection. But we have a new member, Richard. Richard Burton. How are you, Richard?
Very well, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is your first ever. I know you've done a couple of little bits and pieces on some of the forums and so on. But is this your first podcast?
It is, yeah. So I'm looking forward to being a part of it. I'll say thanks for inviting me on. We're looking forward to doing it.
Brilliant. And we do have all live from Cos again. We do have Scunny, Trev. Trev, how are you keeping? You okay?
Jesus, I'm not that old.
He's struggling. He did say to me his internet was struggling. Good evening to everybody in the chat. Put your comments and questions in there. We will try and get to them. We've got a few people on there at the moment. Dave Hurl, we got Kai, we got Raoul again. Hello, mate. So what we're going to look at is first and foremost, we're going to look at the go back over the week's football. Obviously, we done Sheffield last week. So since we've been last on, we had Arsenal versus Vitoria in the Europa League, and then we had on Sunday with the Arsenal Palace game. So what we're going to look at very first and foremost is the Vitoria game. Arsenal manager Unai Emery made 10 changes from that side that lost to Sheffield United in the Premier League on Monday. We came under pressure by what I called a pub team, but goals by Martinelli on the 32nd minute, and also Pepe on the 80th and 90th minute. It didn't really go to plan, did it? Richard, I'll let you come in for first and foremost. It didn't really go to plan as regards to what you'd expect against a so-called pub team.
I think that's a little disrespectful to them because they played really well on the night.
It is.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, before the game, I think most people were expecting a similar game to maybe the Standard Liège game before, which was 4-0, something similar to that. And obviously it didn't go like that at all. And in the end, we got out of jail, didn't we, with the free kicks that Pepe scored in the last 10 minutes, which obviously great to see from his point of view. But I don't think it really covered up the performance, really. It was just poor. We created next to nothing in the last sort of 20 minutes or so when you'd expect us to have really gone for it. And in the end, it was just 2 free kicks. And that seems to be the story of the way it's going for us at the minute. We're just not creating enough chances from open play.
Well, we were what was it, at half-time? I think we were 2-1 at half-time. And we were forced to make 2 changes. Guendouzi and Ceballos came out at half-time. Pepe, obviously, as you said, scored 2 excellent free kicks, which was good to see Pepe. He walked off that pitch 10 foot tall. Melina, were you at the game?
No, I didn't go to that game. Actually, I was meant to go, but I, at the very last minute, decided I'm not going. Pretty much, that was a kind of quick decision based on my mood at the time. I'm getting really disappointed these days. Watching Arsenal is so heartbreaking, and I just feel like I don't enjoy the games, as watching the games. Obviously, I love going to meet, friends and Arsenal family. But in terms of Thursday night, to travel to London, by train and then coming back when it's really late, I just don't feel like I really want to sacrifice, because there is nothing exciting anymore. Obviously they played really well in previous games, Europa League I'm talking about, and I was ready to watch something really good. But then I thought, no, actually, you know what? We've had so many mistakes from Emery with the lineups. We had so many tactical mistakes. I just decided I'm not going. So obviously watching that game at home on a big screen, and I felt at the end, when we actually won it, I felt like that was the game that Pepe was waiting for. He really needed this game. He really needed to come on the pitch and show something more. Then everyone was like stunned that finally he actually delivered something. So hopefully that's gonna boost his confidence. This is really happy moment for him.
There was a guy behind me, Melina, and when the third goal went in, the second free kick by Pepe went in. He just turned around and said, "We've got our dead ball specialist." And I do think he does seem to be a bit of a dead ball specialist. I took my son and my grandson, so there was 3 generations of me at the football. And when that third goal, don't laugh like that, Scully. There was three generations of us there, and when that third goal went in, little Joseph there was my son beside him, and then Joseph, and I looked at him, and his knees were bent, his back was arched, his arms are out. His net, he was just like, yes, and I just thought he's got the bug. He's 11 in January, and he's got the bug proper. Overall, a poor performance, would you say, Mike?
Oh yeah, 100%. It wasn't a great performance. The midfield and the defence, it's just the cracks are showing even more and more. With every game that goes by, especially with like Melina was saying, with the tactics and everything, and the cracks are starting to open up, and they're getting wider and wider every time, and papering it over is just not going to work anymore.
And I would expect we're playing them early next Wednesday, next week, not tomorrow, at 4 or whatever. So, but I was impressed, and Raul has come up and said here as well. I was impressed with the kids. They showed a lot of talent, but there's concerns about the sloppiness that we've got in the midfield and the back 4 at times. Bellerin played, and he looked very leggy. You
got to think as well with likes of Bellerin, Tierney, and Holden. They've got a lot of rust on them. They've been out for a while, so it's going to take the time for them to play a bit more. It's going to take them a bit more time just to get involved and play a full 90 minutes well. Because they've been out for so long. So you can't with the defence in some respects. I know I said it was starting to show a bit, but you have got your likes of Mustafi in there as well, who should really be a talisman in that defence. We all know how I feel about him. So.
Mustafi hasn't been too bad in Europa League. Richard, anything to add on that game, because it seems like an age away with everything else that's happened.
Yeah, I think in a sense it's gone to the back of everybody's minds of everything that happened on Sunday, but we shouldn't paper over the fact that it was another poor performance, and it's good to get the win. It's good to be top of that group, but it doesn't fill me with any great confidence going forward that things are going to improve. And obviously moved on to Sunday, where that was kind of shown again, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, nice segue, Richard. You can come again. Sunday, Arsenal head coach Unai Emery had set to bring back a number of players that he rested on Thursday. Palace's 3-2 win against the Emirates in the last fixture was the first win at the Emirates since 1994. The Eagles had never won twice in a row at Arsenal. and Arsenal are unbeaten at home since they started the Premier League season, winning 3 of the 4 matches at the Emirates. However, they've only kept 1 clean sheet. And in fairness, I think that sums up a lot of what our issue is a lot of our issue is down to the defensive side of things. The lineups, Tierney and Ceballos started, Bellerin and Torreira on the bench. Thoughts, people? Who wants to go first?
I can start.
Go on.
Well, we had a few hours before the game in the pub, obviously waiting for the lineup and stuff, talking about things. As it came on, my first thought was, oh my God, not again. I just can't get this guy. I just really cannot understand why he puts them together. I'm talking about Guendouzi and Xhaka, all the time leaving Torreira on the bench. I just don't get it. Obviously, like when you look at the previous lineups, yeah, okay, that was a little bit better, generally speaking. But those two, I mean, they just cannot play together. It's so simple and obvious. I just don't get what's in Emery's head. How he pairs them is beyond me. It's almost like an insult to Torreira, leaving him on the bench and letting somebody else play at his position, So I already knew when I look at the lineup that something is going to go really, really wrong. And obviously, sadly, I wasn't mistaken.
Mike?
Yeah, I can't disagree much more with Molina there. I think throughout it all, when I first saw the lineup, it was nice to see Tierney in the team. It was nice to see him getting some minutes into a Premier League game. Other than that, I wasn't really convinced. I think the lineup come across as a 4-2-3-1, but it turned out to be a flat 4-4-3 with Ceballos more on the left-hand side of midfield rather than in the number 10 role. I can't really say much more about the lineup. It wasn't.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
In all fairness, with the lineup, it wasn't as when you come across to it, it's not really. Every time you see that sort of lineup, you think, "Oh God, here we go again." And it seems to be like that every game now.
Rich, obviously we've done the lineup a little bit to death, unless you've got anything to add to it. Look, we're up 2-0 up within 9 minutes from 2 set pieces. I know we talked about this briefly when we're doing the testing for this. Socrates and David Luiz took advantage of poor defending at corners, and we showed a lot of promise for the first 20 minutes. And at some point, we could have been 4 or 5 up. You talked about opportunities, and you talked about the goals that we've scored and the opportunities we get in open play. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a big issue at the minute. We seem to only be scoring from set pieces. I mean, the 2 goals against Crystal Palace, the 2 free kicks in the Europa League game. I mean, going back, the last time I can remember us scoring a goal in the Premier League from actual open play was actually Watford away. The second goal, which actually Ozil created with a ball to Ainsley, who crossed it for Aubameyang. And since then, we seem to only have scored from set pieces in the Premier League. Now, that to me suggests that there's a massive problem in the midfield. Looking through the season, I think we've only had about 4 assists from our midfielders all season. And that's after 10 games in the Premier League. That's a really bad statistic when you think of the attacking players that we've got that aren't really getting the service that they need. I mean, Aubameyang's scored quite a few goals, although he's on a bit of a drought in the last couple of games, but he's been scoring quite a lot of goals. But I think
the question you asked me was, can you remember? Okay, we got the Aubameyang VAR at Man United and so on. But guys, can you think of the last goal that you've seen us play properly in open play that hasn't come from a penalty or a corner or a set piece?
No, wasn't it the Man United game where it was deemed offside first?
Yeah, before that.
That was a mistake, really, wasn't it? Man United gave us the ball. It wasn't because we created an opportunity. They gave us the ball and we scored. But I think Watford away was the last goal we actually created ourselves from open play attack. And that was 5-6 games ago.
I can't argue with that. I honestly cannot remember. It's been a while since I've seen us create something from open play.
Nick Birch brings up a comment here. I don't know what's attracted him to this show at all. Following on from Mourinho's comments about our best lineup, which were more or less from spot on from leaving Guendouzi out. is the idea of him being our manager more and more appealing. Anybody want to comment on Nick's question? Anybody want Mourinho as a possible replacement for Emery or anybody? Melina, you know Nick.
Well, we actually had a little chat about this during work today, and I read this statement from Mourinho, and to be very honest, I felt upset because I agreed with most of the things that he said, and I absolutely hate this guy. So agreeing with him on the things, in regards to our team is really upsetting to me. But no, I wouldn't like him to be our manager. I don't believe that he could actually change things, the way that we really need them to be changed. I would go personally for Simeone or Allegri. Originally.
Is Simeone not similar to Mourinho in the sense that he just looks at it's like a George Graham sort of thing? So like it's very defensive first, attack second.
Yeah, but I like him more than Mourinho.
Look, listen, I like Harry Kane more than I like bloody Mourinho.
Really?
Yeah, no, my point being is I don't like Mourinho. Scotty,
no, I just don't like him. I just don't want him to be our manager. And I told Nick, like when we had this chat, that I would find it really difficult, very, very hard to support Mourinho as a manager. Obviously, Nick said something like, yeah, but if he was winning, cups for us or, trophies for us, you would support him. And I said, well, obviously as a team, yeah, we would support, as a whole team, yeah, we would support him as well. But as a manager, I just can't see myself cheering for Mourinho. I just don't like him. That's it.
Mike, would you have Mourinho at the club?
I'd rather have a brick to the face, if I'm being honest. But but you also got to ask the question now. A lot of people are so used to seeing Arsenal in the attacking, in the attacking way, and the flair that we've got throughout the Wenger years. Not everyone has seen the George Graham years, and before. We've only seen, like myself. I was raised in the Wenger years and started supporting during the Wenger years. Now we're seeing the Emery years, and it's. Well, anything could be better than this at the minute, but I think that's the issue. I think maybe too much change in some sort of respect in that way. I'm not saying I wouldn't want Mourinho. No chance. I can't stand the guy. I think he's an idiot. But you've also got to ask that we've got to have a bit of change at Arsenal. Emery was meant to be that change, as well as keep, in what we was hoping for, the attacking flow of what we're used to seeing.
He's a transition, Mike. Definitely.
But this is the thing, and I'm not too sure. After been thinking about it for the last few days, last couple of days now, I just don't think many people would like to see us in that defensive style of play because they're so used to seeing Arsenal as an attacking team.
Rich, you are quite vocal in like the conversations we had, and I don't want to get into the total Emery should he be there or not yet because we haven't finished the Palace game, but Mourinho at the Emirates.
I would say a year ago I would have been the same as everybody else. No, definitely not. But the more I see the players that we've got in our squad now, I could see Mourinho improving the structure of the team. We'd be better defensively. But he's not a long-term appointment, is he? Never stays anywhere for long. He ends up ruining the clubs. If an option was there to get him now till the end of the season, I could see him bringing us a trophy or two, sorting out the defence, making us harder to beat away from home. But I certainly wouldn't want him as a long-term option. Definitely not.
There's other people who've been talking about. Dan come up, Potsy has said Nagelsmann. Nick Birch has said Ten Hag, but we'll go into that. And Kai, I see your question on there. We'll try and get into that in a second. Well, actually, we'll just do it now, I suppose, more than anything else, and then we'll finish off the Palace game. As a fan base, we're too clingy to the idea of a legacy coach, rather than other big clubs who do hire and fire until they get the right get it right, or it goes wrong. do people agree with having a so-called legacy coach? Or I think we are going to have. We're going to have a succession of managers, but I don't want it to be the Man United scenario. But I think we said last week, I've got no allegiance to Emery, and if Emery goes tomorrow or if Emery goes at the end of the season, it doesn't really bother me. I'd rather he gets us into the top 4 and then we reevaluate at the end of the season.
I don't think there's going to be another Wenger or another Ferguson anyway.
No, nowhere.
Top clubs are going to get rid of managers 2 or 3 years anyway, and we need to kind of start thinking like that ourselves. I know it's difficult when we've had a manager for so long, but now Emery's maybe going to get two seasons. His replacement, even if they're successful, might only get 2 or 3 seasons, and then they'll move on or they'll go, and that'll be that. So I think we need to just accept that fact now that we're going to probably get through a lot more managers in the next 10 years than we have in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say I think Wenger was the last in that sort of breed of legacy coaches. I don't think there's many anymore that stay. Especially at top clubs that stay more than 5 years, for argument's sake.
Yeah, well, five. You can already see down the lane that it's 6th season in, and I can't see him doing a 7th. I can't see him finishing the 6th. Any team, you know what I mean. Like you look at Lincoln. They had the Cowley brothers for a number of seasons. You've got Howe down at Bournemouth. You've got Dyche up at Burnley. There are managers who stay for a while.
They're smaller clubs, aren't they? Without the expectations of trophies, getting in the top 4. I don't think any big club now is going to keep a manager for more than maybe 5 years. I mean, I think Pepes now at Man City. I don't think he's got many more years he's going to stay there for.
No, he's got Champions League this season, or he's gone. And you can see that they're off the boil a little bit in the Premier League because Champions League seems to be the main focus. Listen, let's finish on the Palace game because there's lots to talk about in the Palace game as well. Palace pulled one back just before half-time with Luka
Milojevic.
Thank you. Scored from the spot following a VAR intervention when Martin Atkinson initially showed Zaha a yellow card for diving when it tangled Callum Chambers. And that was right in front of us, and I could see, we saw the yellow card come out and we all cheered, but we all went, geez, we got away with that one. And when the VAR intervened and said it was a penalty, nobody argued with it. The execution of VAR, and if you've been listening to Talk Sport, 5 Live, any other podcast, we talked about it last week. The execution of VAR is poor, to say the least, and the experience inside the stadium, Melina, you will have seen it. It's just, you're just sitting in dead space, not knowing anything that's going on. Go on, Melina. What did you make of it?
No, I was absolutely shocked, to be honest. Because, you get those first 10 minutes when you think, wow, it hasn't been usual view for us, to see 2-0 at the early stages of the game. So kind of high hopes, positive feelings about the game. And then suddenly things just, go really wrong. And to have that screen showing you every some minutes, that something is checked again, and then decisions, out of bloody nowhere. We couldn't see that first decision. We didn't know what happened, to be honest. We couldn't see from our spot what exactly happened. And the one thing that is worth mentioning is, when they made that decision, somewhere there, and then they passed that decision onto the fans, through the screen. I believe that there should be some kind of footage, some explanation actually why they changed that decision, because people don't really know. They don't see. We started cheering for something, and then suddenly we looked back and there is absolutely no goal. So, you just question things like, what the heck?
The goal one is separate. We're still on about the penalty.
Yeah. But I'm talking about, the VAR itself as a kind of confusion, because when they deliver that message, that they should also explain it, in my opinion, why,
I agree.
Why they
I agree.
did it.
I agree. The thing that struck from me more than anything else, I think VAR in this instance with the penalty that was awarded to Zaha. I actually agreed with it, but he was given a yellow card, and that's his reputation that precedes him. You know, he's got the most penalties, I think, in the league, aside from this one other player. He's in the Premier League, aside from Vardy, and you know, the Atkinson was so quick to take out the yellow card that was actually very, very poor. The execution of watching VAR is poor. But I think I found out the solution to why, Melina, you didn't know or see anything. Nick was pissed.
No.
No, he went for it. He went for it. So I'm reading that in my eyes. So, anybody have any discussion on the first half? Because we're going to go into the second half, and that's when it gets a little bit more meaty about what went on. Rich, Mike?
Well, all I'll say about the first half was, as soon as the penalty was given, which obviously was the right decision in the end, I felt straight away that we was going to struggle then to win that game, because just you could see that the confidence just drained out of the players straight away as soon as the penalty went in, and that was a massive turning point in that game. And it just sums up the season in a lot of ways. You know, a lot of times we seem to be fairly comfortable in a game, and then we'll make a stupid mistake, and then it just goes away from us. And that was, for me, that was the point in that game where the game was not lost as such, but that was when it wasn't won, if you see what I mean.
I get that. To be honest, and from the first 20-minute performance, where we, as I said earlier, we could have been 4 or 5 up. And I think at 2-0 up, one more goal in the back of the net, and the game's over. And we did have the opportunities. Pepe, I think, fluffed his lines. There was a few others. Going into the second half, Palace became level 7 minutes after the break with Jordan Ayew headed the ball from a James MacArthur cross. Now, that cross was probably the start of a lot of the criticism of the man who's in a lot in the press at the moment, which was Xhaka. Xhaka kept his hands behind his back to try and defend and not concede a penalty, and we just left lots of space. What do people make of that, Mike?
Sloppy, very sloppy. After watching all that, you could say, like Richard just said a minute ago about the players losing focus, and the interest dropping and hearts breaking, if you want to call it that. They just, you could see that no one was, after that point, no one was not really interested. The forwards became static. They weren't really bothered about doing anything, and then obviously the midfield became exactly the same. And that we all criticise Xhaka for what for a lot of things, and we're going to get into that, I suppose, in a minute. But for that, he didn't close his man down. He didn't really go towards MacArthur. So he invited the cross in, and all give them the goal.
I mean, what I would say is regarding that with Xhaka, what he did do was he got back and covered well for Callum Chambers, who got caught out further up the pitch, and he made the run back to cover for that position. Now, obviously, he was in the sort of right back position, which obviously is not his natural position anyway. And yes, he should have done more to prevent a cross. But it's almost forgotten the work he did to put himself in that position to at least try and close the guy down. And
I was going to say, but that's the story of Arsenal during that game. There was no closing down whatsoever. Towards I'll say the last season and the first few games that we had, and we went on that unbeaten run, you could see they had a bit of fight. They wanted it, and there was closing down players. There was looking to get in. They wanted the ball back, and then you got towards the end of last season, and it started to show that they wasn't really interested anymore. They weren't really closing down players. They wasn't really taking the time or watching runs, not even putting in a tackle. And it seemed to have carried on into this season, where you're seeing our players just either they just stand still, they're static, they jog. They don't really they don't want it. It's like they don't want it at all. And like I say, there's a few times that I saw Xhaka in plenty of space. He's good at distributing the ball. everyone says that he is quite good at it. But even during that game, I saw a few times. I've watched the game 2 or 3 times now because I wanted to try and pick every little last detail that I could out of this game because I was so frustrated in watching Arsenal this way. And they're just watching people run past him, and it's not just Xhaka, it's everybody. They're watching people run past him. They're not closing down players. They're not wanting to get involved, and it just seems to have carried on, and it's just getting worse and worse. And like I was saying about Xhaka, there was a few times where he was in open space, we had the ball, and it was going backwards to the defenders and coming back to a couple of midfielders. Everyone but Xhaka in that area where he normally is. He just wasn't interested in having the ball.
Did you guys see the match of the day punditry? And the match of the day punditry was shown that about Xhaka. He just didn't look like he wanted the ball at all. Every time he cleared space that he could have received the ball, he seemed to look away from the ball. Now, what I wanted to do,
actually, I'm glad I got something right for a change.
Yeah, no, you did, and have a look at it before we get into the Xhaka debate, because that itself will take up a bit of time. I suppose if we jump past the Xhaka thing, and you're looking at the second goal that Palace had, somebody on there, Bradley said David Luiz was to blame because he lost his man. Yeah, to a certain degree. In fairness. The two centre halves, I thought had overall a good game, and VAR prevented us from getting a third goal.
They had a good game going forward. I don't know about a good game going. The position's not meant to be.
Should we need a third goal at home to Crystal Palace to win, though? That's the point. If we defended better, we wouldn't have needed the VAR for the third goal. We would have won the game anyway. 2-0 up after 10 minutes. A decent, good, structured team would win that game comfortably. And even if it only finished 2-0, you're not putting yourselves under pressure. You're not conceding a goal, and you just see it out. And that's where the problem is. We can blame the third goal not being given, which it should have been, but that really doesn't alter the fact that it shouldn't have mattered, really.
We had the perfect opportunity to take control of the game by being 2-0 up. We had that. Arsenal, before, we've seen Arsenal take control of games when we're 2-0 up and maybe scoring a couple more in the meantime. So I agree with Richard there. We shouldn't have needed that, that lifeline of that goal, in the last few minutes. It shouldn't have been like that.
I think in reality, Mike, we should have capitalised in the first 20-25 minutes when we were actually on top of the game, and we could have been 3-4 goals up. We did get a third goal. Our frustrations were completed by another VAR intervention, and the Emirates Stadium was denied a victory as Socrates scored from close range, but apparently it was a foul by Chambers on Milalovic, whatever it is. This is where Molina needs to help me out, because there's too many J's and L's and everything else in there for me. But we had a situation where there was VAR, and VAR basically said that Callum Chambers was committing a foul. And this angle is not the best angle. When I've tried getting the moving pictures, but the bandwidth is just too much. It doesn't allow me on here. But Callum Chambers has been fouled by, if we can flip it around the other way, that he's been fouled, in my view, by 3 people. Cahill is pushed on his back, and at that point, despite there being 2 or 3 fouls on him, he lays his hand upon this player in here that you can see where my mouse is on, and VAR deemed that he had pushed and fouled him, despite him being fouled by Kayute and by Cahill and whoever that other fella in there is. But the ball came free, and Socrates scored, in my view, a very good goal.
Can I just point out quick here? First of all, before this, and like I say, I've watched the game 2 or 3 times now, Callum Chambers was actually pushed before all this started happening.
Yes, it was.
Milovic. And he was pushed before that, so that should have been deemed straight away a penalty way before all this actually happened. Now, when it comes to the VAR, how can you deem that Callum Chambers has made the foul when it's 3-on-1? It's 3 players crowding one player, and basically feet are all over the place. There's pushing and shoving going on. That shouldn't have been deemed anything. In all fairness, it should have just carried on as it was.
Yeah. The other
There's no foul there on either side. In all fairness, during that, I don't think there was any foul. There was a couple of feet touching feet, and then Cahill at the end of that pushing him over and falling on top of him. That could have been deemed a penalty. But like I said before, that Chambers was pushed way before all this happened.
It was called by VAR, and the thing with VAR when we're in the stadium in the first half when the VAR come on, BBC were doing the coverage because it was match of the day and the cameras were different and everything else. And for some reason, somebody flicked the switch, and we actually could hear all the VAR chat to the referee in his ear faintly because the PA system's absolutely pony in the stadium, but. In the second half, it disappeared. But it did make it slightly easier to understand because all of a sudden we heard at one point investigating handball and so on. But the VAR official who deemed this to be a foul and not a foul on Chambers rather than a foul conceded by Chambers rather than Chambers getting fouled by three people, he's never refereed a Premier League game in his life. He is from the Australian A-League, and he has done a few games in the A-League. Richard, thoughts on the whole thing?
I mean, VAR is just not working in any game. I mean, we've been on the wrong side of a couple now. The Sheffield United game where Xhaka was booked for diving when that was possibly a penalty. It wasn't even checked in VAR. And, the whole thing is just ruining the game. It's not helping. It's not designed for the people in the ground watching the game. It's more for a TV thing, isn't it? To try to get decisions right. Now, we were told that VAR was meant to come in to stop all this controversy. And I mean, last season, we missed out on the Champions League by the tiniest of margins in terms of points. And, we could look back and say, well, that was because we should have had a penalty here or a goal should have been given here. And this season, we think, well, that's not going to happen now. But, if we miss out on the top four by 2 points, that's going to be 100% down to the VAR decision in this game. And yes, as I said before, it shouldn't have come down to that, but ultimately it did. And we should have won that game 3-2. And we've been completely... And the system designed to stop that happening, or it was meant to be designed to stop that happening, but it's just not being used properly. So they either have to start using it correctly, the referee needs to look at the screen on the side of the pitch, or they need to just get rid of it completely and go back to the system from previously, which wasn't perfect, but at least we all knew where we were. A goal goes in, you cheer, it's a goal. The Man United game away, you can't cheer a goal because it goes to VAR. You're cheering a goal 2-3 minutes later. Just ridiculous. And I don't know, they need to completely reassess the whole VAR thing and come back with a system that's going to work. It seems to work better in the World Cup than it's done this season. It's just ridiculous.
You guys just chat for a second. My doorbell's not in, so I'll leave you guys chat. Be back in 2 seconds. But talk about the VAR stuff, Melina, Mike, and there's some questions on the chat at the side. But I'll be back in literally 2 seconds.
Yeah, I agree with you, Richard, as well. There's a TV screen there. If the ref isn't 100% sure, and if he's still not 100% sure with the decision given by the guy who sat in a room, then he should really be going over to that TV screen and checking it himself.
What you got to think of is he's looked at the referee, he's decided there was no problem, he's given the goal, then he's getting told in his ear, oh, there might be a problem, there's a foul by Chambers, we're going to disallow it. So who's right? Is he right or is the VAR referee right? He needs to look at that again. Surely that's a typical example of when that has to be used. With the penalty one, maybe not, because I think that was obvious. But certainly on the decision, on a decision like that goal, the referee's got to look at that again himself. And if he looks at it and sees it again and thinks, okay, yes, that is a foul, I'm going to disallow it, then really you could say, okay, not much you could say. But the fact he didn't even check it, he's gone on the opinion of a referee from Australian A-League. I mean, what even is that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
And this is top level football. It's probably Europe's top league, or apparently it's Europe's top league. And it just comes down to some guy in the studio saying, "Oh, I want to disallow that goal because I didn't like it," and the referee on the pitch not taking control of that situation and saying, "Let me see it again." And that's
a scandal.
It's a scandal.
I was going to point out as well over the weekend, I think there was a decision in the Everton game where Mike Dean was in the VAR booth and he made an absolute howler as well during that game for a VAR, which was deemed, I can't remember if it was a penalty or not now, but I do believe it was a penalty. And he said it wasn't, which,
that was one where the
A-League refs and everything else. It's our own Premier League refs that can't even get it right.
Well, I mean, we know what our Premier League refs are like.
These are why they are invited to the World Cup.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we can't rely on them to get it right a second time when the one on the pitch can't get it right in the first place. I mean, it's a ridiculous situation. It's just we've now got 2 referees that are wrong as opposed to 1 that we had before.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, so the elephant in the room, I suppose, is the game took a toxic turn just after the hour mark when Xhaka was substituted. The captain reacted angrily to jeers and his slow departure and waving and cupping of his arm, cupping of his ears sarcastically to the home support, exchanging words before he took off his shirt and disappeared down the tunnel. Added to that, there was a lot of discontent lurking close to the surface at Arsenal. Loud chants for Mesut Ozil rang out, which is purely... I don't think the Ozil chants, if you look at the Ozil chants, aren't about Ozil. I think it's more about an anti-Emery thing. Let's look at this Xhaka thing first of all. I've entitled this, and the spelling gets me away with this, but what a Xhaka Xhit. It's an Xhit. Yeah, so that's how Xhaka is spelled, isn't it? I thought it was quite clever. But what did we make of Xhaka? And Melina, you were in the ground with me, with Nick and the others, but we were all in the ground, and you saw him trudge off that pitch so slowly. It was ridiculous.
You know, I had to calm down after the game, you know, to analyze that scene properly, because that was really upsetting, you know, to see the reaction of the fans and then reaction of Xhaka himself. My opinion slightly changed, you know, since Sunday, because I was really angry at him. I was really disappointed with how he behaved. I still am, don't get me wrong, but my opinion changed slightly because of realization that he's not the only one to blame, you know, that he's not the one to be blamed for how he's treated. So my thinking right now is that we should really put our focus on Emery and his decisions. Why is that? Mainly because Xhaka is not the one who makes decision about playing. So when he's out, you know, playing on the wrong position, we blame him for making mistakes. Okay, I understand that we can be angry when he makes that mistake, but then again, it's not him playing on the position that he should be playing. It's Emery making him play on that position. Secondly, I think that the fans that criticize him, they should really look at the one very important point. He's like us, a human being. How much abuse can you get? I don't know, guys, if you have seen social media in regards to Xhaka as a player, but there is so much abuse going on pre-game, during the game, after the game. You know, he gets messages, awful messages. There's
been a threat to his wife's life. You got to Man United.
There was even something about his newborn child. You know what I mean?
And Melina, unfortunately, some of these platforms encourage it. We definitely don't. But some of these platforms encourage more malevolence and stuff like that. But Twitter, Facebook, we just have to go onto some of the groups that we're all on. You can see people, nobody appreciates anybody else's opinion. Everybody comes along and just wants to, have another one-upmanship and shock therapy. And I don't know, go onto Twitter, look at who was it, Rashford, got racially abused on Twitter. So as much as I think it's dreadful that Xhaka gets any of that abuse on social media, unfortunately, that is a fact of life at the minute. But on the pitch, I don't think he's been. Yes, he has been played out of position. I agree with you 100% on there. And we discussed some of that on Sunday. But what Mike said earlier, like, he just didn't look up for it. And I don't think he is our captain. And at our captain, could you see Sol Campbell? Yes, we know Sol Campbell walked out at half time at West Ham at Highbury, but could you see Tony Adams? Could you see, pick a captain, bar Gallas maybe, pick a captain. Who else would you see doing that? And his job, when it got, he could hear us. There was an ironic jeer that could have been, you could interpret it as that people were cheering that Saka was coming on, a young hopeful. They could have been cheering at Emery because he's actually made a substitution and taken Xhaka off because he's been so blinkered and stuck with him continuously regardless. But if he's a captain, knowing that we're 2-2, that we should have been 3 or 4 up, that he should have marched off that pitch at the earliest point possible and then, come off. Instead, what did he do? He stood there, trudged and trudged. When people went, come on, mate, move, 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 he starts waving his arms around. And then when people start getting a bit more louder about, hurry up sort of thing, he then cups his arms and tells us to F off. I didn't see the F off from where we were, but you see it afterward. And then it turned into boo. I just think it is just something an Arsenal captain should not do. And to throw armband on the ground.
That's the one. That's why I wanted to mention that. To me, everything was bad. But what he did with this armband was actually disgraceful. I think this is the one point that I just can't swallow. I just absolutely cannot digest how he just throw it on the ground, for Alba to pick up. I mean, you just don't do it. Since that moment, I just felt like he's supposed to be. He behaved like a child, He behaved like a child with a tantrum. So obviously, that's not really something that you look. That's not a captain's quality, you know what I mean? Like, there is absolutely nothing we can. I'm just absolutely shocked, because it's like a betrayal, He shouldn't, as a captain, he shouldn't even have this kind of thought in his head, like, okay, I'm going off and I'm going to throw it. It's something that you just don't do. And I listened later after that game. I listened to what Ian Wright said about this, and he was absolutely disgusted. He was shocked that in his days, no one ever would behave in such a way. So what really is happening with our club right now, that people, like Koscielny, like Xhaka, do things like that. It's absolutely beyond me. I don't get it.
Richard, Nick asked a question as well. What did you think of the Xhaka situation?
Initially, at the time when he got taken off and what he did at the time, I probably felt the same as most people. I was quite angry with his reaction, but the more I've seen it and the more I've heard about it since, I actually feel quite sorry for him. He's on the pitch. I think he always tries to do his best for the team. Whether or not we think he's good enough or not isn't really it's not our decision to make. He's in the team. He gets picked. He got picked regularly before. He's getting picked regularly now. He's a regular for his country. But he's just out there doing his job to the best that he can do. He doesn't deserve the criticism that he gets. Not just on Sunday, but before that. He's been made a scapegoat for quite a lot of things that's wrong with the team. He's been made captain, not his choice. Apparently, the players picked him, so they must have respect for him. And I just think, as fans, that there's no benefit to be had by treating one of our players like that. I mean, I actually felt more sorry for Saka as well, who was coming on with all that atmosphere that was there at the time. He's a young lad. He must have gone onto that pitch petrified of doing something wrong because of the way the atmosphere was. And, I don't know. I mean, I think Xhaka's got a big job to play for the club again.
Do you think that like Dave Atkinson's asked, said that there was all this social media crap, as the word he uses, it's been thrown at them. There's platforms like this podcast, like Arsenal Fans Forum, like Proper Arsenal, like Arsenal Away, but you name all the different various ones. You got Arsenal Fans TV. You've got that, and then Nick also asks, do you not think that the recent managers have devalued our captain's armband already? Like having 5 captains, does that not, like, when do you remember? I was listening to the radio before. When do you remember a proper Arsenal captain before? Like,
yeah, but I think the whole role of the captain of a football team has been devalued everywhere, not just at Arsenal. I mean, you look at the other teams. I mean, Liverpool got Henderson as a captain. You wouldn't imagine he's not your typical kind of captain, is he, of a top team? I mean, Man City, I don't even know who their captain is now. Company's left. And I think the whole it's overstated, really. I don't think the captain's that important, really. It's a player who's probably going to play every week, and a player who's maybe popular in the dressing room and has maybe got some sort of leadership qualities on the pitch, possibly. But I think it doesn't really matter who the captain is. Let's just get the team to play properly, and that's more important than whoever captain is. I mean, it doesn't make that much difference. They go up and lift a trophy if you're lucky enough to win one, and that, what else are they supposed to do? It's not like in years ago when maybe the captain did a lot more things behind the scenes with the team, organised things and this, that, and the other. They don't do that anymore. Everything's done for them all anyway, and the captain's just a figurehead that the managers pick just for someone to lead the team out. And I don't think it's as important. I mean, I think if a captain of Arsenal had behaved the way that Xhaka did maybe 10 years ago, it would have been a much more slate on the club, if you like. It would have been a lot worse. I mean, really, that's nothing. It's been made a massive deal out of it. And really, what's he done? He's got a bit of abuse off the crowd, which he didn't deserve, and he's reacted because he's been angered inside him for a little while. And who cares? Let's just forget it, and
what should he do next? Should he apologise?
Should the fans apologise for throwing stuff at his car, for abusing him on social media? They don't, do they? So what's he got to apologise for? All he's done was get a bit angry. At least he's shown that he cares, that it matters to him. He's one of the players. He wants the fans to support him. He wants the fans to support the team. So of course he's going to be angry when that's not happening. And maybe as the leader of that group, which he is, it sends a message to all the other players as well. I mean, Torreira's reaction showed that it affected the other players. I mean, it's their captain, their friend, and you've got 50,000 people abusing their friend. How do you think they feel? Do they want to go out and play for the club now? Do they want to go out and prove to the fans and show the fans how much it means to them when all they see is their friend getting abused? And not just on Sunday, but constantly. And it's not just him, it's Ozil as well. Ozil gets abused all the time, and suddenly now he's the next best thing because he's not playing. It's just madness, really. And I actually really do feel sorry for Xhaka now. And I hope that he can come back into the team and he can play. Whether he should be captain or not doesn't matter to me. Possibly not in the circumstances. But he should be allowed to play for the club. He clearly loves playing for Arsenal. I think he always has done. And I just want to see him back in the team and everyone just, move on. It's a lot of fuss over nothing, really. In actual fact, when you consider it.
Oh, I've been chomping at the bit here.
I know you have.
Right. First thing, all this booing and everything else, because it wasn't till the jeering started. I don't necessarily agree with the jeering, but I can understand fans' frustration with it, especially as he was taking so long to walk off the pitch. So the jeering starts. It was only after the booing started only after he cupped his ear. And that's when the booing started to happen. So you can understand where the fans come across from that. At the end of the day, these fans are paying a hell of a lot of money to watch this team go out and underperform. And I'm not just blaming Xhaka, I'm blaming the team right now, and underperform consistently over the last few games. Can you understand? I can understand why fans get so upset about it, especially paying all this money. I don't agree with the social media side of it, and I don't agree what they did to this car. I think, come on, sort yourself out a bit, grow up a bit, fans. You don't need to throw stuff at people's cars and stuff like that. You're adults, for God's sake. As for what he did, as for Xhaka, for what he actually did, with him throwing his armband, he basically threw a wobbler. He spat his dummy out, which Melina said as well. He's acting like a child. There's no need to act like a child just because the fans are booing you. Grow up, you know what I mean? Man up a bit. This is their platform where they want to play. They want to play in front of these thousands of fans. Now, as for feeling sorry for Xhaka, no, I don't. I really don't feel sorry for him because he's brought it on himself after, what's he been with us now, 4 or 5 years? He has not really consistently performed. No, hang on, Fergus. He hasn't really consistently performed. If he wants to go out there and show fans, we know he's not the best player in his position. We know he might be playing out of his position, but go out there and play the best you can every game, and fans will respect that no matter what.
You don't think he is?
No, I don't think he did.
He hasn't.
You don't think he hasn't? Best of his ability. Maybe he is. Maybe that's
if he is, I don't think he is, because we saw that just for watching Crystal Palace. If you go back and watch it, you can see he is not consistently playing to the best of his ability. You can see he is not interested.
And they pointed out perfectly.
He's not interested, but it's not just Crystal Palace. He does that every game. He did it against Manchester United. He's done it against, he's going to do it again in the next few games as well if he gets picked. It's not just, I'm not just blaming, I'm sorry, hang on, no. I'm not just trying to blame Xhaka or anything out. It is a team effort a lot of the time. But Xhaka is taking the brunt of it right now because he is our captain. And now to act like that and spit your dummy out and throw the captain's armband on the floor, take your shirt off of the tunnel, I bet he wanted to throw that shirt. There was obviously something inside of him said, don't do it because this could be your last thing you ever did.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's the reason why he didn't throw that shirt. Otherwise, I reckon he would have thrown it.
People are forgetting as well that Xhaka also is the man who criticised and said that the team were scared at Watford. He criticised the fans after he got jeered when he got taken off against Villa. So he's had a bit of a build-up. I know, Richard, me and you, when we talked on the earlier test that we done, you mentioned that he's recently had a baby, and yeah, that does put a strain on a person's. His wife has had a baby. Otherwise, he wouldn't need to play football again because he'd be a very rich man if he could procreate with himself. But they've had a new first baby in the family, and that does put strain on you. Like they won't have the monetary worries whatsoever, but they will have the the tiredness, the emotion, and so on. But as I said to you,
time off.
No.
Time off. I'm sure it's in their contract if they have a baby, like everybody else's contract at work.
He's got 2 weeks off.
He'll have paternity leave. Exactly. He can take as much time as he wants. There's no excuse. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but there's no excuse. If I went to work tired and I'm gonna get absolutely slated at work for it. If I'm not doing my job.
Have you had 50,000 people shouting abuse at you? Have you ever faced that? Do you know how you would react? You don't know.
But Rich, have you had 50,000 people come along? You will get that they inside the stadium have no problem with. Well, I don't particularly like booing our own fans. Okay, that aside, but cheering, come along. Like Alex Iwobi got it continuously all the time. Every time Theo Walker. Every time he used to, miss a shot, and I was like, oh, that groan that goes around. That groan has got to be worse than any boo or anything like that. That's just like, I've done my best. And everyone goes, oh, boo. The only reason he gets booed is because people are extremely frustrated. The stuff that happened out with coins at his car, the social media stuff that you talked about, Melina, that's all absolutely, totally out of order. But
that's why I said these people need to grow up and get a life. Get off your keyboard and go outside for a little bit. There's no need for stuff like that. I do not condone that whatsoever. But I understand why the fans started booing, because it was after he started giving it the old cupping of the ear and everything else. That's when the fans started to boo after that. The jeering come, like the sarcastic claps and everything else, that come as he got subbed. But that he also got that on the last away game that I went to at Sheffield United. He got exactly the same there from the away fans. The fans are frustrated.
My issue is if I saw Xhaka, if Lee sits beside him sometimes when Xhaka's not playing, and if I was sitting beside Xhaka next week or whatever at the Wolves game, because he's not playing at the Wolves game, I would have gone, mate, you were bang out of order. That was. I would say it to his face, and
I think I would as well. I wouldn't have.
I think if I'm comfortable with saying it to his face, then I don't feel guilty about criticizing them here and on these sort of platforms. I won't slate him left, right, and centre, but I just think no.
I think it's fair enough to criticise him for his reaction. I don't think there's an issue with that. I think his reaction obviously wasn't in the best interest of the club or anything. But people are slating him for his performances on the pitch. People that have never played football before. I mean, you can't have a go at him for how he's performing because he's doing the best that he can do it in that particular game. He's not purposely going out to play rubbish. He's not purposely going out to give the ball away or whatever it is. He's going out.
Rich, did you not see that? I know the punditry can get what they want, but did you not see the stuff on Match of the Day? I
did, but is that not?
I would agree 100%, but every time there was a pass onto him, he looked the opposite way. It's. He didn't want to make eye contact. He didn't want to do the ball.
That tells me, and they touched on the Match of the Day, that it's a confidence thing. He's not maybe confident. He doesn't want the ball because he's fighting.
Then he shouldn't be starting.
No, maybe he should, but that's not his fault. That's the manager's. The manager's the one who's picking him, and that's what it comes down to. But ultimately, while he's on the pitch playing, the more support that the players get, all of them, that the more likely they are to maybe play slightly better and not be afraid to get the ball and stuff like that. And I just can't see the positives of booing your own players or abusing your own players. Do it to the opposition players. Put them off. Don't put your own players off. And if after the game you think they play very well, then after the game, say they're not doing the job, but not while the game's on. For 90 minutes, support the players on the pitch.
You know what? You got to ask. You got to say as well, Richard. I'm sorry when you said like a lot of these people that may never played a football game in their life. That's fair enough, but they're paying the money to go in to watch Arsenal day in. I mean, week in, week out. A lot of them are playing to go, to away games as well. So you got to think how much money these people are paying to go watch these players. I'm not just going to say Xhaka here, as I'm saying them all right now, and. You don't pay all that. You don't pay good money that people go out and earn a wage for to spend all that money just to watch this that's going on now. And
I agree.
To go back to Xhaka, when he does underperform, which he has underperformed in numerous games, I think it's probably since the start of the season, he's not really performed. He's not shown enough to me. He hasn't shown enough to warrant people cheering him on. He hasn't warranted a lot of the jeers. I'll admit that, but I'm not the one who's doing it.
Is he playing worse this season to say last season or the season before? I don't think he is particularly.
Well, there you go then. This is where you got to understand where the frustration is.
I didn't rate him last season, the season before either.
No. So what I'm saying is, you're saying he's underperforming. He's not underperforming if this is his level. It's been his level for 3 seasons or more. So
if this is his top level, then he needs to go.
I agree, but that's not his decision. It's not our decision. The coach is picking him, and while the coach continues to pick him while he's playing, we should support the team and not get on any individual players' back. And if we don't,
I just wanted to throw one thing in. Basically, listening to you, especially Mike, when he's saying that he hasn't. Shown that he's so poor, and yes he is, but there is only one person who can really help him out. There is only one person who can change it, and that person is Emery. Playing Xhaka as a defensive midfielder is not helping the guy at all, because this is not his natural position. He just cannot perform to his very best on the position that he's not designed for. Simple as that. Last season he was much better because he played alongside Torreira, and this season, obviously, when Torreira is constantly benched and Xhaka is performing together with Guendouzi, what do you expect from him? He just cannot do it.
I think it's an Emery love fest with Guendouzi, because Guendouzi was his original sole signing. Because what's that?
Guendouzi was a Mislintat signing.
No, it was under Emery.
He was a Sven.
Okay,
he was a Sven signing.
Okay, I just think he's got a thing with Guendouzi, and he keeps on putting Guendouzi first, and he's sacrificing Xhaka for Guendouzi's position, which I think is what you were trying to say, Melina. But
well, because you know what, to be quite honest, I would be very upset to see Matteo on the bench, because he's been excellent. He's one of our best players right now. You know, to me, he's actually a captain. You know, role model as a captain. You know, he's too young still to get the armband, but he's got qualities of a captain. To me, he's just simply outstanding. That's why I wouldn't like him to be benched. But if you want Xhaka to play, if you want him to perform to his best, you have to put him out with Torreira. So Torreira can go onto that, you know, deeper defensive role, and Xhaka can go, you know, a bit further. You know, it's simple as that. I mean, everyone can see it apart from Emery. So
this is the issue, that, and it brings on the greater point about Emery. Like, you know, Xhaka's come onto this criticism. We talked about Torreira was being played so far forward the other night, and Ceballos was being played at an 8. Torreira was being played at a 10. What's going on? Does the guy does the guy have a clue? Listen, I'm so not trying to be hashtag, you know, all that sort of stuff. I really want this transition to go and we get top 4, and then whatever happens. As I said earlier on, I've no allegiance to the man whatsoever, but I was asked by Potsy on Thursday night, what did I think? Was I in or out? And I said, Potsy, I said, I'm confused. And that's all I can say. I am confused. And I know nothing about football. That's why I do this. I know nothing about football. I love Arsenal. I love watching the football. I love the social aspect. I love all this sort of stuff, chatting to you guys. But I'm not an expert. But these guys who are professional footballers, they must be just equally as confused as me.
That's exactly the problem, isn't it? That I mean, Emery seems to not be sure where anybody should play. He's made a habit of playing players, not just Xhaka. Like you said, Torreira was playing out of position. He's played Ozil in the wrong position when he's picked him, and he's done it constantly. It's confusing for us as fans watching it. It must be confusing for the players as well, and we wonder why we're not looking cohesive as a team. I mean, the whole Ozil thing, it kind of on Sunday, funnily enough, with the position that Ceballos took up in that team, and the same when he came on against Sheffield United, when he's dropping very deep in front of the back 4 to get the ball. That seems to be what he's expecting Ozil to do when he was playing Ozil. And that's why I think he's not been playing Ozil, because Ozil can't do that to him. Ozil needs to be in the final third and doing his stuff there. And it's like, I don't know what Emery's problem is with a number 10 position. He doesn't seem to want anybody to play in that position, even though he's got a player in the squad. Well, he's not picking him in the squad, but he's got a player at the club who can play that position perfectly well. And he just doesn't want anybody to play there. And I just don't understand what he's trying to achieve. There's massive. We're playing in 3 sections. We've got the front 3, we've got the midfield, and we've got the back 4. And none of them are playing together as a unit. They're playing as almost three separate sides. You know, the defence is getting no protection from the midfield. The midfield are not supporting the front men. So it's just a mess. And that's why we're conceding goals. We're not scoring enough goals. And suddenly we've been practicing some corners and we're scoring a few goals from corners. So that's about the only thing Emery's actually improved in a year and a half.
Nigel McGrath's got a question. We are going to go to close shortly as well. But probably a final topic before, a final question before we quickly look at, I've got a couple of questions and then we go from there. But Emery could potentially do more damage in 2 seasons than Wenger did in the last 10. Wow. That's quite strong. Potsy
That's a strong one, yeah.
Potsy has gone backwards under Emery. Act now before it's too late. I don't know. For me, I'd wait for Wolves and Leicester. I know that puts us probably in a bit more precarious situation, but we got an international break then. So
I agree with what Nigel said. I do agree with what Nigel just said there as well. With he could potentially do more damage. At the end of the day, you got to look at it this way: Aubameyang's coming up to his final years. Lacazette's probably going to come up to his final years as well. So we're looking at there. If we don't get Champions League this season, I think there's definitely 2 players there that could potentially say, right, we'll see you later. Then I've had enough. And there's our 2. You know what I mean? With Aubameyang, there's our goal scoring just gone, and then also the back goal scorer Lacazette is gone. Pepe is only just joined, so I can't see him deciding to leave just yet. But there is other players in there as well. Torreira is not being started, and like Melina rightfully said, he's not even getting a game, and he's been played in the wrong position when he does get a game. Sooner or later, he's going to be fed up as well, and he's going to turn around and say, "I'm homesick. I want to go back to Italy." And there's going to be plenty of Italian teams lined up chomping at the bit to get him. So it's with Emery at the minute, and I'll get off the Xhaka stuff now, but yes, I do blame Emery for a hell of a lot of this, what's going on right now, because he is doing everything wrong at the moment. His tactics are more confusing than a Rubik's Cube, to me.
Should Guendouzi be the first name on the team sheet?
Yes, by far, yes. Guendouzi should be one of the first names on the team sheet because he's the only player at the moment that I see playing so well, and that rugby tackle was amazing.
I thought was even more funny was on Twitter. Zaha came along and tagged him in a comment saying the NFL was at Wembley that weekend because the Cronkies were in town. Stan was watching the Rams in Wembley, and Josh was in the Emirates. I believe Josh had a chat with Emery afterwards because of the whole hoo-ha and everything else. Listen. To close up, we're 10 games in, and I always have said that you should never judge a season or how the season is going to be until you're 10 games in. We're 10 games in. Where are we? 5th or 6th in the league? I don't know. We're not. We've just fallen away a little bit. Where, Melina, one sentence. Where do you predict us finishing at the moment?
Lower than expected.
And have you got a number, or you don't know?
In one sentence. I'm afraid to give any numbers right now because if he continues doing what he's doing, I can see us getting to that top 4. To be honest, I just cannot.
Okay.
Probably 6th.
Okay.
If
Mike, have you closed?
Mine's going to be a little bit longer, but I'm just going to say 2 episodes ago, we said before the Sheffield United game, the best we can really hope for for the points in the next 4 league games was at least 7. So far, we've got 1, and it's been the 2 games, and we're coming up against Wolves and Leicester. We're probably going to get maybe 2 points out of these 4 games because I cannot see us beating Leicester, and Wolves is going to be just as difficult as what Crystal Palace was in the way we're playing at the moment. So we're probably best off chances out of that one. It's probably best off jumping for another point. As for top, a number on where we are going to be in the league, it's going to be difficult because we're getting overtaken right now by, we're going to get overtaken by Wolves, Leicester. Man United are going to come into form sooner or later. They always do, regardless of what's happening. So there's 3 teams that could be above us there, as well as the scum are starting. They'll come into form at some point sooner or later. You just don't know. So and Chelsea are going for it now. So I'm hopeful for a top 6 right now.
Mike, finally. Not Richard, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, at the minute, we could either finish 3rd or we could finish 10th. And it's impossible to know what's going to happen, really. I mean, unless some changes are made, I think we're more likely to finish closer to 10th than 3rd. Obviously, I'm hopeful we can get the top 4, but if we do get the Champions League, we're not in a position to compete in that the way that we've been playing. Just quickly on Wolves as well. I mean, last season we played Wolves at home in November. Going into that game, we were in great form. We was unbeaten in about 15 games. We drew with Liverpool the week before, and we were really poor against Wolves at home. We were lucky to get a draw. And at the time, I thought to myself, that's fair enough. We've been good form. We can accept the odd bad game. But in the year since then, that performance against Wolves last year has become the norm since then. And hopefully maybe playing Wolves at home again will be the turning point again, and we can produce a performance and go on from there. But I'm not confident as things stand. We're just not playing well enough. And if I was going to predict a finishing place now, I'd probably say 6th. I think Leicester will finish above us for definite. Man United probably, and maybe Wolves. There's several teams, Crystal Palace even, the way they've been playing.
Well, up until up until a couple of weeks ago, before the Sheffield game, I went third, nailed on third. This run in is just like I don't know. I still think we'll manage top 6, but I think we have to get top 4. Briefly, we have Liverpool against in the quarterfinal League Cup tomorrow, 8:00. I'm going for a 1-1 extra time penalties, and hopefully we get it on penalties. Anybody else? Anybody predict a victory in 90 minutes?
I go for victory.
Go on, Melina.
It depends what team Liverpool put out as well, doesn't it? If they rest a lot of their players, I don't think they've got as much strength in depth as maybe we have in our sort of second 11, if you like. We could win
their second 11 gave Genk a right shoe in with Chamberlain.
Yeah, fantastic goal. That's Genk, isn't it? You know, I mean, I don't know.
Is Genk equal to our second 11? Our first 11 struggled against the pub team. Go back to the beginning.
Well, yeah, they did. I mean, I'm hoping we can stay in that competition, because it'd be nice to actually finally win it for the first time in a long time. But I'm not confident. I'll maybe go with you. Maybe a draw and penalties.
And Mike, are you going for a draw and penalties, or are you going for a loss?
I'm going for a loss.
Okay, right. And then
I'll go for a 2-0 loss, because I can't see us winning that regardless. The way we're playing, but it all depends as well. It depends who's coaching the team. If Youngberg comes back in and coaches for our cup team, it might be a different story.
Okay, and picking up from what you said earlier, you're indicating a draw against Wolves at the weekend.
Yeah, I'm going for a draw. Yeah,
I'm going for a narrow victory. I'll go 2-1 to the Arsenal. Melina, what you got for Wolves? It's a 3:00 kickoff.
I just want to feel positive again. So I go for victory. You know, I just want us to win so much that, you know, I just say, yeah, we're gonna smash them.
Thank you. Listen, Melina, thank you very much for joining us. Scunny, as always, always welcome. Richard, a couple of comments in the chat on the side. Well done, Richard, from Ross Morgan. He has been taking the mick out of you earlier on, but that's fine. Kai Chen said, well done, Richard, on your debut. And Potsy, who is out, you know, on the Raz, I expect, said a good day. Oh, that's not that one. Let me get that one up. Sorry, somebody else commented, so it jumps down. Potsy wished you, said, where we go? It's all gone. But Potsy said a really good debut as well. So I will get it. Hang on. Just to bring it up. There we go. Good debut tonight, Richard. So, Richard, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully, we'll get you on a couple more times. You have been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons Live. It is an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans, for Arsenal fans. And we'll leave the final word to Emerson to say, hi, Dad.
Hello, Emerson.
Up the Arsenal.